Day 62. Snow drapes the world in silence, but a new chapter begins and revelations lie ahead. My journey for answers continues. It was a quiet, frosty morning. I grabbed all of my newly acquired hematite and hurried into the barn to start the iron refining process. I crafted 4 bloomeries, filled each with 120 iron nuggets, and lit them up. I had to decide what to forge first, a set of iron tools, new powerful weapons, or perhaps a suit of plate armor. There was just enough flax in the stores to craft a gambeson. Wearing plate armor would slow me down and burn more energy, so the padded linen would do for now. The mining excursions had yielded enough bismuth for 6 ingots. With 2 ingots needed per plate, I proceeded to craft 3 lanterns. The homestead would feel much safer with proper outdoor lighting. Finally, the bloomeries were finished firing, and I was positively surprised to find a total of 24 blooms. At this rate, I would never run out of iron, as I had barely made a dent in the deposit in that cursed cave. I placed a hot practice bloom on the anvil and went to work cutting away the slag. First thing I needed was a new hammer. With that out of the way, I figured a sword and shield would be the 2 most useful projects. I forged a falx, a sickle-like blade specially designed to hack through the metal-infused flesh of the drifters. Next, I forged a boss and a hoop required for a shield. All through the evening, drifters were amassing outside the house. It was time to take the falx for a spin. Even a massive horde of those monsters was no match for my new iron blade. It had now been over a week since the last temporal storm, and fighting inside my cramped living quarters wasn't going to cut it anymore. I needed to build some sort of a fortification, a place where I could take full advantage of the enemy's weaknesses. It was still dark out when I started laying the foundations, and rift activity was high. The smart thing to do would have been to wait a couple of hours for daybreak, but I had a falx now. I opted for a round bunker, inset 1 block deep into the ground. A full coverage of narrow windows would allow me to swipe at the feet of any drifter, while hopefully being protected from bow-torn projectiles. As the sun came up and I chiseled away, I brought out the 2 scrolls I had retrieved from the cave. The first scroll contained the script for a play titled Brief Discussions with the Traveler. It was a conversation between 2 people. Odwin sat in his study, poring over his work, when someone known only as Traveler struck up a conversation. Odwin spoke with pride and certainty, of rising above the masses through achievement, of being a lion among worms. But the Traveler asked him something no lion could answer. What happens when the lion is faced with something greater? What comfort is pride when no one weeps at your end? Perhaps the world before the cataclysm had been full of lions and not enough worms to mourn them. The second scroll was a ledger, the final entries of a quartermaster from a group of survivors. Their food was running out. They were down to scraps, even chewing the leather from their clothes. A pair of squirrels and a gosling had been caught, but it wasn't enough. The workmen in the mines got what little there was, but even they were fading. Worse still, 3 names were marked: Joseph, Barda, and Jarin. Taken, the ledger said, not willingly. The quartermaster held on to hope that some still had a chance, not for their sake, but his own. I wondered if these scrolls were written by the inhabitants of the bunker I had found, or perhaps from a larger colony, like the one Jonas Fawkes alluded to in his journal. All the texts I'd uncovered so far were first chapters, beginnings, but each one carried the same ominous weight. Whatever chapter came next, I was certain of one thing. It would end the same, in desolation. A light temporal storm was approaching, so I waited. The fortification worked like a charm. The drifters had no means of getting to me and wandered aimlessly outside while I hacked away. For the first time, it felt like I was in full control of the storms. The time of cowering away in fear was over. It was calm after the storm, and I had time to think about my next projects. I found myself craving company in the homestead, so I set a goal of acquiring some livestock. I figured chickens would be a good starting point, so I built a small coop and placed down a pair of hen boxes. Then it was time for another round of pie making. There was nothing quite like a hot, savory onion pie to keep the winter chills at bay, so I did what anyone would in my situation: 7 pies. My nail supply had ran out, so I worked on a set of nails on the side. With fresh nails in hand, I built a scroll rack upstairs to safely store the 2 old scrolls. After carving up a total of 30 slices of pie, it was getting late, which meant a couple hours of working on the blooms. "15 more to do," I assured myself, exhausted. I woke up the next morning with a shock. The creepy old doll had moved again. This time it sat right outside my bedroom door. Someone or something was toying with me, I was sure of it. I had to get rid of it once and for all. I grabbed some travel supplies and set out into the cold winter morning. In my mind, the best way to dispel this strange curse would be to return the toy to the bunker where I found it. I had other reasons for embarking on a journey as well. First, it wouldn't hurt to collect another stack of iron from the depths of the cave. I returned the doll and hood to their resting place, hoping it would be enough to give the ghosts of the past some peace. Then I plunged deeper toward the hematite. Carving up a pair of stray drifters, I found something peculiar. A faint turquoise glow emanated from a gear. It shivered slightly when I picked it up and seemed to rotate on its own, as if driven by a temporal link to its past function. I would need to research it later. After gathering a full stack of bountiful hematite chunks, I emerged back onto the snow-covered surface. The trip was far from over. First on my mind was to excavate every ruin in hopes of finding more ancient books. My second objective proved far more difficult. The traders had shared rumors of a treasure hunter who might hold answers to some of the burning questions swirling in my mind. Apparently, he had a wagon set up somewhere not far from here. All I had to do was find it. I wandered eastward fruitlessly until nightfall, then dug a small shelter to get some rest. I set back out shortly after, while it was still dark. I figured the lantern glow of the wagons would be easier to spot at night. Sure enough, I soon stumbled upon a light in the distance. The wagon belonged to Sprig, a trader of miscellaneous survival supplies. He wasn't of much help in my search, so I kept looking. As the sun began to rise, I spotted another wagon. The cold wind seeped through my gambeson, and I began to shiver. I lit a torch to keep warm as I hurried toward the wagon. It belonged to an agricultural merchant called Grit. Finding the treasure hunter wasn't going to be easy, and my body temperature was still dropping fast. I found another one of the ancient burial sites nearby. After getting warmth back in my toes, I sprang up to excavate the site. Strangely, this time, there was nothing but dirt inside the mound. Perhaps the merchant had got to it first. I pressed on in search of more ruins and wagons, turning southwest so as not to stray too far from the homestead. The traders were not nearly as rare as I had anticipated, and making new acquaintances with them kept me motivated. The snow hadn't yet covered the land in the south, making travel substantially easier. As the afternoon sun waned, I came across another wagon. To my chagrin, it was yet another trader. I wondered why the treasure hunter was so difficult to find, and why none of the traders knew his exact location. Perhaps they didn't like him much. By a wild stroke of luck, I stumbled upon an unlit wagon. I had found the elusive man himself, the treasure hunter. After chatting for a bit, Vox Nora revealed a task for me. He had found something big, something too dangerous to handle by himself. In exchange for its location, he asked for a tin bronze pickaxe. He refused my used one, wanting a pristine one instead. I promised to forge him one as soon as possible. Luckily, Vox Nora's wagon was only about 500 blocks from my homestead. I wondered what he possibly could have found. I ran back home with renewed excitement and fired up the forge straight away. The only thing keeping me from heading straight back out into the night was the haul of bony soil weighing down my backpack. Sifting through the soil, I found a book. I sat down on the stairs to read through it right away. It was Chapter 2 of the Quartermaster's Ledger, picking up where the previous entry left off, with the loss of 3 brave souls. The quartermaster visited Jaren's wife to break the news of his demise. The woman seemed in poor shape, presumably on the verge of starvation. Jaren had been a good man, and the quartermaster wouldn't be alive if not for his aid. Still, there was nothing he could do for Jaren or his kin. This fate, he feared, would come for them all. The entry ends with, "Rest well, friend. I am sorry." With a freshly forged pickaxe in hand, I made my way back to the treasure hunter to complete the exchange. He revealed that a couple weeks back, he had stumbled upon a massive cavern with a huge figure looming within. He was sure that the place was filled with treasure. He marked its location on my map and urged me to be prepared for trouble. The marker was labeled the Resonance Archives, located roughly 4,000 blocks to the north. Vox Nora seemed like he knew more than he let on, and the notion of a huge looming figure gave me the shivers. I wasn't keen on waltzing into a perilous cavern in search of riches based on a hunch, but if it would shed light on even one of the mysteries I had been reading about, it would be worth it 10 times over. For now, I had preparations to make. Most importantly, I was still missing one more leather backpack. For that, I would need to hunt for more hides. While the animals were quite lean during the winter and didn't yield much meat, the hides I was harvesting were just fine, if not better. I roamed the surrounding hills until sunset, managing to collect 7 medium hides. The tanning process would take roughly a week, which meant I had plenty of time to prepare for the eventual journey to the residence archives. I continued with my nightly routine of baking pies and forging ingots. It was starting to feel easier, almost enjoyable. Since I had time to kill, I wanted to switch back into construction for a while. I chopped down a few oaks and sawed them into support beams. The second floor exterior was lacking in detail, and beams were the perfect way to give the walls more structure. I spent the second half of the day inside. First, I worked in some details on the staircase with the leftover beams. Then I forged a spare iron hammer, moved the soaked hides from one barrel to the next, and last but not least, made iron ingots. The door near the anvil was constantly swarming with drifters, so I wanted to see if putting up fences in the backyard would grant me some peace and quiet. Next on my list of preparations was to gather feathers for arrows. I remembered seeing plenty of chickens grazing in the plains near Jasper's wagon. Finally, I convinced him to buy one of my cracked vessels for a whopping 9 gears. Nearby, the bushes were alive with the sound of clucking. I had collected plenty of arrowheads from panning and managed to make 27 arrows. Since they had only a small chance of breaking when shot, I figured they would be enough. The new fortification outside had sparked an idea. It would be the perfect spot to build a windmill on top of. I had no idea how to build one, but since the survival handbook had in-depth documentation, I wanted to try. Using up the entirety of my oak supply, I had enough planks to make the frame 9 blocks tall. After the mill was built and had a roof, I wanted to connect it to the main house with a footbridge, keeping it separate from the fortification below. It ended up looking quite pleasing, and I was eager to see if it would function. The following morning, it was time to roll up my sleeves and do some engineering. The various mechanical parts were intricate, requiring resin, fat, and linen to construct. After reading through the instructions several times, it was time to get the wheels turning. With a promising start, the rotor was actually spinning. I quickly realized that the sails were modular, and right now they were little more than tiny nubs. After running the rotating axle down to floor level, all I needed was the quern from the kitchen. The windmill actually worked, if only for a second. I would need larger sails, and I was out of linen. Regardless, I was proud of the new addition to the homestead. Next year, it would look grand. The stack of iron chunks still needed to be smelted, so I got to work building bloomeries in the barn. Each time a bloomery was cracked open, some of the fire clay bricks would break. I shaped the rest of the clay I had into bricks and fired them up. My bronze woodworking tools had earned their retirement, and it was time to forge an iron set. With some finishing touches upstairs, the space was starting to feel very cozy. The house finally felt complete. The year was rapidly coming to an end, and my chicken coop was still empty. I found a recipe in the handbook for basket traps, which would be perfect for catching chickens. I made 2 traps, grabbed a handful of grain for bait, and went back out to the plains to look for my first companions. After hearing rustling in the bushes, I laid down the traps and quietly backed away. The chickens were smart and easily avoided getting trapped. The second attempt worked like a charm. I had caught both a hen and a rooster. After letting the frightened little creatures loose in the barnyard, I loaded a pair of troughs with flax grain. I hoped the chickens would survive outside, as I wanted to save the indoor space for goats and the like. Sure enough, they started wolfing down the grain as soon as I left. Using up my last 2 bronze ingots, I crafted a lantern for the chickens. This way, I could keep an eye on them at all times from my upstairs window. I was starting to develop a new addiction. It was seeing how high I could pile up the growing stack of iron ingots. It was officially the last day of the year. Surprisingly, the hen had immediately laid 3 fertile eggs. The hides were now ready for their final stage of soaking. In 5 days, the journey to the mysterious archives would commence. In the meantime, I wandered around the homestead, taking a moment to enjoy the crisp winter air. Perhaps a New Year's feast would be in order. My thoughts wandered to Izel, the friendly old merchant. Why not stop in for a visit? I grabbed my gears and made my way to his wagon. What better way to brighten his day than to make a purchase? I bought enough linen for a new set of windmill sails. After filling up the chicken troughs, I rummaged through the pantry to cook myself a proper feast. With a belly ready to burst, I went to bed. Thus far, winter had been a gentle mistress. Progress was steady, and I was feeling unstoppable. But the trials I have faced would pale in comparison to what lay ahead.